Worst edge on YouTube? You guys let me know. Alright, so I'm standing in front of one of the yards that I picked for an ugly yard makeover, and it might not look that crazy. The grass isn't that tall, and I know I normally pick the wild, crazy, insane ones, but I'm gonna go ahead and give myself a handicap today, and you'll see that later in the video, so that way it's a little more challenging. But let's go ahead and take a look at it. We got a bunch of stuff built up on the curb lines, and the edges are all pretty messed up. We've got stuff growing in almost all of the cracks. Then you come down here, and not only do we have stuff in the cracks on the edging, but we got sand, kitty litter or something from where oil was spilled. Okay, so that's built up there. Let's see here. Right here the edges are overgrown. Let me know if you want me to do the concrete. I'll come back and clean up the concrete. I also got some muriatic acid for cleaning up rust stains, so we can mess with that too. Let's see here. Again, build up. You know, we got the grass growing through, so it's not just, I mean, this has been here for a good while, and the edging's over a few inches, so pretty rough there. Kind of odd, crazy thing that you see in older properties is you'll see water meters and stuff in odd spots. But the yard's not too bad itself. The grass has been cut. It's low. It's weeds. It's an Oklahoma mix of just this and that, right? Now this over here, this is a rose of Sharon, okay? And these are blooms probably from last year because it hasn't bloomed out yet. But it's just starting to kind of bounce back. They'll have pink or purple, sometimes white flowers. Okay, down the side of the house, not too bad. We're not messing with the backyard, and I did get permission to work on this property. Okay, I asked people. Wind chimes are cool. I like wind chimes. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this. We've got this wild and crazy stuff here. You can tell water's built up here. This just needs edge. We've got a lot of leaf debris in here, and then we have, well, small little decorations. So we're gonna go ahead and pick this stuff up before we blow this out. This fencing, there's not too much I can do with that. Some of this is broke, so we'll pick up the stuff that's broke and throw it away. And I'll come in here and I'll go the extra mile for you. And what I'll do is I'll pull all of the weeds, and then we'll lay down new mulch. So I'll have to go back to the house to pick up some mulch, but I do have some there. So we'll lay down some mulch. Cut out this random rose of Sharon that shouldn't be that close to the house. This elm tree that's growing up, we'll cut that down too. Okay, this bag of mulch has been sitting here for a while. That guy's trash. It's gonna be molded up nasty. We'll come in and yeah. So again, like I said, if you do want to see me power wash the driveway, let me know afterwards. I'll make another video of that, cleaning it up. We're gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up. I'm gonna start with the edges, get those back in shape. We're gonna use the metal blade edger because you guys like that. I like using a string trimmer, but you guys like the metal blade, so we'll go ahead and use the metal blade. Whatever, I'll give you what you like, and go from there. Let's go ahead and get into it. What it do, baby boo? Back for another ugly yard makeover. In this video, we're gonna do exactly that. Take this ugly yard and turn it into something beautiful. Anyways, I hope that you enjoy some of the tips and tricks that I talk about and share in this channel. If you do, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so every lawn has its own unique plan of attack, and it really all depends on, well, it depends on a few things. One would be the budget for the job. Is the client paying you for a cleanup? If they're paying you for a cleanup, then you can take the extra time, go the extra mile, make it look sharp. If it's one of those things where it's a budget cut, they want to cut maybe once every 2 weeks, I would suggest trying to get everybody to weekly. You'll see a lot of less headaches in your business when you get all your clients to weekly. But I know in some areas, bi-weeklies are kind of the thing. If you're in a rural area, that might be the way to go. So anyways, if you're looking at a budget cut and they're not really willing to pay for a cleanup and the edges are overgrown quite a bit, you might let them know, hey, it's going to take a few services to get that edge back in shape. And that way you can come in and you take a little off with your weed eater, and then you take a little off with your weed eater the next visit, and you do a little more the next visit. And after about 3 or 4 services, the edge is looking pretty crisp. It's back to the groove, and it's all good. It didn't really take you much longer. You know, you're there about the same time each visit. You're not using much material as far as your string, you know, because something like this, if you're coming in and you're doing the first service on a property and the edges are really, really overgrown, you might go through a metal blade edger. Like the whole blade might be shot in one property. So those are about $4 a piece. You can't buy them in bulk online for like $1 a piece. But if you're going to buy them one at a time, they're about $4 a piece. So that's something to keep in mind. I like the double thick blades. Those seem to last a little longer. Although I've never been a real big fan of using a metal blade, but if you have employees, they're perfect. So here's the difference between the metal blade edger and the string trimmer, okay? And this is just my opinion, but the metal blade, you can put that in anybody's hand and instantly train them, okay? Look at the very top of this. On top of that head, there's a line, and you just tell them, keep that line straight with the groove, you know, get the blade going at full speed. Make sure it's not bogging down the engine, and then pull that blade into the concrete. If you're not shooting sparks, you're not doing it right. And after a while, they'll start getting it, and you know that blade will be in the groove. And after the first few services, you know, when you're on a first service and you're cleaning it up, it's pretty hard to keep in the groove. But when you come there weekly and you have them edge weekly, they'll just fly through it. They can almost run with that thing. So that is a big plus. Now, with the string trimmer, when somebody is proficient with it, they can run with it, and they're just as good. They're not using a whole lot of material. You don't have to worry about buying any extra blades or anything. But every now and then, it doesn't matter how good you are, every now and then you will fall off that groove and you'll leave a little funky divot in the lawn. And, you know, the more practice you have, the less that happens. But where I would say the big difference comes down to is if you're residential and you're doing small properties like this, a string trimmer you can get away with. It's not very physically fatiguing. You know, when you're doing a larger corner lot, you'll feel some of that fatigue. But if you do a mile stretch with a weed eater, like I used to have an HOA entryway, and it was probably about a mile worth of edging. It was exhausting. So, you know, with the metal blade edger, you can set it down on the ground. You got a little roller wheel. You keep it in the edge, and it's not as fatiguing. So for long shots, it absolutely makes sense to use a metal blade edger. If it's a short shot, string trimmer's fine. You know, you can do a quick run on the outside of the curb, take a breath, readjust, do one side of the sidewalk, do the same, take a breath, readjust. And as you're readjusting, you're moving your muscles a little bit, boom, you get reset, you shoot down that sidewalk as fast as you can go. But with the metal blade, you can just do really, really long shots. You know, you could stick that in somebody's hand and they could probably go for a couple hours at a time. I'm not a big fan of them, but, you know, that just comes down to what your personal preference are. So, and like I said, the type of work you do. Since I'm doing these smaller residentials, I'm not really a huge fan of them, but they are great for these cleanups, getting that edge back in shape. I really kind of prefer a weed eater, but I will say if you want it to look awesome when you're done, it's really hard to mess up with a metal blade. Now, if the turf is too thick, if there's a lot of dirt, a lot of buildup, it's very hard to get the blade to go all the way through and down into the concrete, so it or down beside the concrete. So it'd be almost nice if there was a guard and a blade that was, say, 2 inches longer. But for the average use, the blades the size they are perfect. But every now and then, like I said, you run across a lawn that's got real thick dirt beside the sidewalk, and it doesn't match quite up. But the other downside, I would say, is that when it's wet, you get a lot of dirt that flings up against the guard on the inside, causes it to bog down, but then you also get dirt on the sidewalk, and your little roller wheel will leave a track, a really ugly mud track that is very hard to clean up. So it's kind of one of those things that just happens. It's kind of like if you cut wet green grass early in the spring and you roll your tire over it with the mower, it's going to leave a stain on the sidewalk. So the weed eater doesn't do that, but what it does that's not as comfortable is it flings stuff up into your face. So you'll get hit with a random rock in the inside of the nose or on the tip of the nose. That's probably the worst ones, is the inside or the tip of the nose or the eyebrow. Ooh, you want to talk about painful? You shoot a rock inside your nose or up on the eyebrow, and you'll be ready to throw that weed eater down and call it a day. But you know, those are just things that you come up against, and you move on, and it is what it is. So for these crazy cleanups, I gotta say the edger's probably the way I'm gonna use in the future, and it just makes for a better video. You know, you guys like the sound of it too. I don't get it. The big downside for me is that I'm a short guy, and for this edger, for me to get it at the right angle, oftentimes I gotta hold it up right beside my ear. So, and if you've watched the channel, you know I'm not a safety Sally, so as far as headphones go, or earplugs, I use headphones and I just blast music into my ear. Probably not the best route to go. We'll see. Alright, you might be wondering what I'm doing, kicking everything. But this blade's not even worn that much, and it's just a little short, so I have to hold it up at a steeper angle so that I can actually cut in, because the edge is so overgrown and thick that it's not getting deep enough to get down by the actual concrete. So I'm having to kick it out of the way. Yes, I can use a shovel, you don't need to tell me. But I'm the kind of person, when I'm doing a project, I'll kick something, get out of the way. I don't need to go get multiple tools to do one project. So when these blades get when these blades get short, you can get them all the way down to about right here, and you can still cut if you're weakly. You can just hold it at the right angle and you run with it, and it's good. But when you're doing these cleanups, you wear them down real fast because they're rubbing against the concrete. So this is one of the things I don't like about metal blade versus a string trimmer, because when you're using a string trimmer and you get good at it, what you can just do is just tap that string out a little further and you keep cutting. So what you would do with the string trimmer is you cut a little bit on the edge here. You cut a little bit and work your way back. So you'll go down the edge and you'll kind of make an edge, a false edge, but you're able to keep it straight enough it looks like it's edged. Then you take it back a little further and a little further every week if you're just picking up this client. But if you're gonna do a full out cleanup and you're only gonna visit one time, the metal blade might be the way to go. But for me, I could always get the same results with the string trimmer. It's just getting good at whatever piece of equipment you're using. That's just my opinion on it. Let's go ahead and get back to it. Okay, so the next step, I'm gonna get this ready to mow, but what I have to do is I have to blow all of the debris that's built up out here on the curb up onto the property, get all of the stuff that I cut off of the concrete edges. We need to get that up and out of the way. Some spots, like over on the sidewalk, are just way too thick, and I'm gonna have to actually remove some of that material. And then coming down into the flower bed, we want to blow this material out of here, all the leaves. But what I need to do before I do that is actually pick up all of their little decorations, move them out of the way so I don't blow them into the lawn. So we're gonna blow all of the leaves out, get them onto the turf, and then we're gonna mulch those onto the yard. Let's go ahead and get this old bag of mulch out of here. Not doing anything good. Everybody asks about snakes all the time. Do I see snakes? And here's the thing. I rarely see snakes. And when I do, there's little garden snakes. Luckily where we live, they say there's rattlesnakes, but I don't ever see them. So we have copperheads, water moccasins, and rattlesnakes, but everything else is all friendly. So I'm gonna put this guy, let's get him out of here. Let's go put him on the side of the house because he eats bugs. So let's get him out of the way. We want him somewhere he's not gonna get hurt, because I'm gonna blow all the leaves out of there. Remember, he's a good guy, okay? So we'll just put him right down here in the leaves. Come on, dude. Yep, he'll take off and be safe there. So many people on here have told me the shovel's the best way to handle this, and I gotta tell you, you're dead wrong. The weed eater is. This is way more labor intensive. So I'm gonna knock it off with that, and I'll come back when I'm weed eating. I'm gonna weed eat that and clean it up, and you'll see how easy it is. Okay, so one thing to really keep in mind is if you are selling this type of service, if you're doing a cleanup on a property, make sure you are charging accordingly. Coming in and cleaning up these edges will take a lot longer than mowing the lawn, especially if you are cutting back 6 or 8 inches of soil or even more. You got a lot of debris to move, and soil is very heavy. It may not seem like it, but it is very, very heavy. And it takes a lot of time to come in and, you know, 1, cut it, then 2, shovel it out. Now you can put some of this on the turf and mulch it up, but a lot of this is just so thick and it's so much soil buildup that the only way to get rid of it is to actually remove it from the property, in which case you'll have to either tarp it up and haul it away, put it in a trash can, put it in trash bags, or in my case I loaded it into the back of my truck. Just make sure you're charging accordingly for the extra time and disposal of material. All right, enough playing around. I got a debris loader. I wanted to see. It does it, but not that good. So ideally the best thing to do would have been just drag the tarp into the trailer or put it in a trash can, that kind of thing, haul it off, whatever. All right, but look, we're in the middle of it. The yard is messy, right? This is one of the things people don't really talk about. In the middle of a project, it generally looks messy. It's gonna get bad, but it's okay. The next step, now that we've got all that busted up and I went through the hassle of using a shovel, because YouTube land loves somebody using a shovel. I don't get it. Anyways, now I'm gonna use the blower. I'm gonna blow all of this onto the turf, and then we're gonna start to mow it, okay? And when we mow it, all of that's gonna get mulched in, and whatever's left, okay? And I can tell you there's gonna be a couple spots that there's some stuff that's left. Like over here, we got a lot of dirt. Well, when I mow that, if it doesn't mulch it that well, when I'm done, I'm gonna use a blower to fan it all out and make it look good. So let's get back to it.
If you do what it is that you're called upon to do, which is to lift your eyes up above the mundane, daily, selfish, impulsive issues that might beset you, and attempt to enter into a contractual relationship with that which you might hold in the highest regard, whatever that might be, to aim high and to make that important above all else in your life, that fortifies you against the vicissitudes of existence like nothing else can. And I truly believe that that's the most practical advice that you could possibly receive. The way that you fortify your faith in life is to assume the best, something like that, and then to act courageously in relationship to that. And that's tantamount to expressing your faith in the highest possible good. It's tantamount to expressing your faith in God. And it's not a matter of stating, well, I believe in the existence of a transcendent deity, because in some sense, who cares what you believe? I mean, you might and all that, but that's not the issue. That's not the issue. The issue, it seems to me, is how you act. The issue is not what you believe as if it's a set of facts, but how you conduct yourself in the world. The purpose of thinking is to let your thoughts die instead of you. It's a brilliant notion. And so the idea is something like, you can conjure up a representation of yourself. You can conjure up a variety of potential representations of yourself in the future. You can lay out how those future representations of yourself are likely to prevail or fail. You can cull the potential yous in the future that will fail, and then you can embody the ones that will succeed. You do that well simultaneously, conjuring up a representation of your current state and determining for yourself, because of your undue suffering, which elements of your pathetic being need to be given up so that you can move forward into that future. And the goal, what is it that you're aiming at with that work and that sacrifice? That's the ultimate question. What is it that you're trying to do? Well, you're trying to improve the future. We believe that the future can be improved. We believe that it can be improved as a consequence of our sacrificial work. And so, once again, what are the limitations? What are the limits to that? What are the necessary limits to that? I would say we don't know. We conjured up this remarkable idea. The future exists. We can see it even though it's only potential. We can adjust our behavior in the present in order to maximize our probability of success in the future. How best to do that? Well, the idea is something like, don't hesitate to offer the ultimate sacrifice if you want the future to turn out ultimately well. What is it that you could contract for, let's say, if you were willing to give up everything about you that's weak and unworthy? The proper sacrificial attitude produces a psychological state and then a social state that's a manifestation of that attitude that decreases the probability that the world will careen into hell and increases the probability that people will live high quality, meaningful, private lives in a society that's balanced and capable of supporting that. And none of that seems to me to be questionable, really. I also don't think it's anything that people don't actually know. You know, people have told me many times that when they listen to me talk, they're hearing things that they already knew but didn't know how to say. It's something like that. And this is one of those things that I think is exactly like that. I mean, I think it's at the very core of our moral knowledge, which is our behavioral knowledge and our perceptual knowledge. I mean, let's get this straight. Moral knowledge is no trivial matter. It's knowledge about how it is that you orient yourself in the world. There's no more profoundly necessary form of knowledge. Well, it's predicated on something that's exactly like this. We know that we have to make sacrifices. We know that we have to aim at what's good. So then why isn't that we don't aim at what's best and make the sacrifices that are necessary in order to bring that into play? I think it seems to me that in some sense that's self-evident. The question is why we don't do it, but there's answers to that too. Life is hard and it hurts people. It's rife with limitation, and some of it's arbitrary, and some of it's unjust, and some of it's worse, some of it's malevolent, which is even worse. It's not surprising that that combination of vicissitude can turn people against being. But I think even when that happens, and even when people have the kind of history that if they revealed to you, you would say, well, it's no wonder you turned out that way. The people who turn out that way still know that it's wrong. They still know that however deep their own suffering, however arbitrary their own suffering, however much that's caused by the malevolence of others, as well as the tragedy of existence, that does not in any way justify their turning away from the good. And I believe everyone knows that. I believe that they know it implicitly, even if they don't allow themselves to know it explicitly. And I believe that if they violate that idea, then they violate themselves, and that they end up in Cain's position, which is the position of the man who's been given a punishment that is too great to bear. Now we're capable of making sacrifices in abstraction, right? To conceptualize a future that we want, to let go of the things that are stopping us from moving forward, and to free ourselves from the chains of our original preconceptions. Pursue pleasure. Follow your impulses. Live for the moment. Do what's expedient. A mountain is something you have to climb, and you have to climb to the pinnacle of a mountain, and the mountain is up, right? And the mountain stretches up to heaven, and it's a long journey to specify the right place on the highest pinnacle. And that's symbolic, because of course it's a pinnacle that you're always trying to reach, just like you're always trying to aim. You're always trying to climb upward. At least that's the theory. It depends to some degree, of course, on your definition of upward. You're supposed to, again, to act out the highest good of which you're capable. Now that'll transform your life to some degree into an archetypal adventure. There's no way around that, because as you attempt to climb a higher mountain, let's say, or to aim at a higher target or something like that, then the things around you will become increasingly dramatic and of import. That happens by necessity, obviously, because if you're aiming at something difficult and profound and you're really working at it, then your life is going to become perhaps increasingly difficult and profound. But that might be okay. That might be exactly what you need as an antidote to the implicit limitations that face you as a human being. The good father is precisely someone who is willing to sacrifice his child to the ultimate good. You have a moral obligation as a parent to encourage your child to go out into the world, right? And to be whoever they can be, to be the best they can possibly be. And in doing that, you're encouraging them to pursue the good. You're sacrificing them to the good. You're not keeping them for yourself selfishly. You're telling them that they can go out and live their life and live it properly. You don't want for your son what it is that you want for him. You want for your son what would be best for him and for the world. And you let go in precise proportion to your desire to have that happen. When you have an infant, you do everything for the infant, because the infant can do nothing for him or herself. But as the infant matures and is increasingly capable of doing things for him or herself, then you pull back, right? You pull back, and every time the child develops the ability to do something, you allow them or encourage them to do it, and you don't interfere. You know, so if your child is struggling getting dressed, well, obviously there's some times that you help them, but mostly you let them learn so that they can know how to do it in the future. That's better for you, and it's certainly better for them. There's a rule if you're working with the elderly in an old age home, and the rule is something like, don't do anything for any of the guests, let's say, that they can do for themselves, because you compromise their independence. And so as a mother, you pull back and you pull back, and you let your child hit him or herself against the world, and you fail to protect them. But by failing to protect them, you encourage and ennoble them to the point where you're no longer necessary. Now, they may still want to see you, and it would be wonderful if that was the case, but the point is that you're supposed to remove yourself from the equation by encouraging your child to be the best possible person that person can be. And you sacrifice your desires, all of your desires, to that, your personal desires, even your desires for your child in relationship to you. Because you want them to move forward into the world as a light, right? As a light on a hill. That's what you want, if you have any sense. And so you don't get to keep your children at home because you need them.
handicap. 6 horsepower Craftsman. It's got the mulch kit underneath. Side discharge, so I might do side discharge on some of it. We'll see. But we're gonna go ahead and try it out and see how it is. I know it smokes a little bit. Somebody tipped it over. If you tip these over, this has an air filter on this side, right? So if you tip it over, make sure that is the side that's up in the air. You know, if you got to get to the blades. If you do it the other way, you'll get oil down into your carburetor. It'll, you know, get oil in the air filter. Jack it up. Anyways, let's go ahead and do this. I'd say that's a handicap. It's been a long time since I had a push mower. It doesn't even have self-propel, man. Oh, pull caps off. Okay, so in my business, I'm at the point where I have outgrown using a push mower. That's not to say I'm too proud or that, you know, I can't use one or blah, 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 whatever it might be, okay? I'm just saying I have outgrown it. At a certain point, you'll get equipment and you can grow past using a push mower, and what's going to happen is you're going to realize you make more money using a certain piece of equipment, so why not just scale up and use that piece of equipment more than that push mower? But I bought one just for this channel. One, because we have a lot of people that are homeowners looking for tips. And two, there's a lot of people looking to start a business and they don't have any money. And they're like, hey, how do I start a business? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I bought this push mower at a yard sale for $20. This push mower I could use all season, and it will be trash by the end of the season, but it will have made me a lot of money if I went out and sold jobs with it. So say you're selling jobs, and you're selling jobs at $50 per service, right? And let's just say you hit 2 lawns a day, and you do that 5 days a week, okay? So you made $100 a day, 5 days a week. You made $500 after work. What's an extra $500 gonna do for your life with an investment of a $20 mower? Plus you're gonna have to have a weed eater, maybe a hand blower or a broom. You know, everybody starts different. I will say a good blower will go a long ways, but you can find a used blower for $30. You can find a weed eater, a used weed eater, for $30 to $50. They're there. You just have to look for them. So realistically, you could invest about $100 in equipment, and you could be in business, and you could go out and start selling your jobs. And you're like, well, I got to buy a business license. And look, every state's a little bit different. In our state, we're kind of the Wild West. It's really not that much. It's like $25-$50 or whatever to register, and you got to do it one time, and it's really, really easy. And you send off with your CPA for the which for me is my father-in-law, so that's really nice. But you know, you do it online, and you send off for your I forget what it's called, your EIN number, which registers you as a business, and that's like $100 so that you're registered with your federal tax ID. Okay, that's what your EIN number is. It says, I'm in business, this is my number that the IRS gave me. All that stuff you'll figure out as you go. So don't worry, like sometimes you just have to have movement. And for me, I didn't have any of that stuff right away. And the IRS knows you're probably not going to have that stuff right away, because a lot of people are just like you, and they're just figuring it out. They're trying to get the ball rolling, and they know that your first year, you might not even file taxes that year. That's not to say you won't. It's just saying you probably won't do it your first year, which is okay. You go in and you file for an amendment, or you extend, you know, file an extension, and you get it filed, and it is what it is. So if you're just starting, save all your receipts, all the gas receipts, all that stuff, put it in a shoebox, do whatever you got to do. Just keep it there. Okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is don't get caught up in all the nonsense. Just go out and make it happen. Down the road, as you start making some more money, file for, get some insurance. I used to think that would cost a lot. I buy insurance for about $60 a month, 50 to 60 through Hiscox. It's a $2 million liability policy, and it just takes the stress out. But more than likely, all you're going to do is knock out a window, and it's going to cost you about $200 to $400 to fix. It just is what it is. It's part of life. It's part of being in the business. Don't be scared about the nonsense. Just make it happen. And what you got to do to make it happen is you got to get some flyers or door hangers, or go knock on some doors if you don't have any money, or print some business cards. I started, okay, this is a real story. I started with a business card that had aquarium fish on it. Because I had an aquarium business. It was like a little side hustle where I went around and I cleaned aquariums before I started the lawn business. Well, I don't know if you know this, but it's a lot easier to sell lawn service than it is cleaning somebody's aquarium. And the reason being is that aquariums are kind of a enthusiast hobby where somebody is doing their own aquarium, which you get with lawn care, where a lot of people are doing it themselves and they're out there and they're making the grass look immaculate. But more than likely, there's a lot more people in your area that just want the grass cut and they don't want to have to deal with it. So then you get this cheap mower and you get out there and you start hustling. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying every day is going to be perfect. I'm not saying that it's a get-rich-quick scheme or that you won't have any stress. But if you work a payroll job and you just need to make a couple extra $100 a week, you can do that. If you want to replace your job, you can do that. If you want to grow to be a very, very large company, you can watch the right people and do that. There are so many channels that put out awesome content. Tonight I was on a podcast with Mike Andes. He's like 25. And he has, I think, somewhere around 50 franchises here in the U.S. He owns, his Augusta Lawns. And then, like I said, all the franchises with that. He owns like a gym. I mean, that guy's, he's killing it. He's on a whole nother level. But he puts out so much free information out there for people that it's amazing. And you can find a whole lot of these guys that do that. Now, for me, if you're looking for business advice, I talk to guys that are in the startup phase or in their first couple years, and I try to give the best tips that I could possibly give to help you out. So if you want to listen to that podcast, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link in the description, because it was a lot of fun being on there with him, and he did ask a lot of good questions that I think would help a lot of people in the startup phase and the phase where you're stuck in a mental trap. And I talk about how I started my business with the last $100 we had. And it was just, it was a wild and crazy way to start. And it was a slow crawl for us to get to where we were making decent income, to where we could pay our bills and not have to worry as much. And we are still repairing our life and getting in the position that we want and positioning ourselves for the next 10, 20, 30 years of our life. So, it's a constant evolution. A lot of people only tell the glamorous stuff online. They're too afraid to talk about their failures or what doesn't look good. That's not me. I'm willing to share everything. And some people say it's the working man's blues, and I don't want to hear that. Hey, look, I'm not on here whining. I'm just telling you, it's not perfect. You're probably gonna have some head trash and some drama and some things you have to work through. And you're probably not going to do as good as you thought you did unless you are very clear about your end goal. And not only being clear about your end goal, but having the plan that backs it up. Because you can go, I want to be a huge company. Well, what's it take to be a huge company? What is a huge company in your eyes? What's the number? How much profit? How much money do you want to bring home? I get people asking, hey man, how many lawns should I have? Well, I don't know. How much money you want to make? How much income you want to make? Because you ought to start with that. How much money do I need to make this year to replace my job if I want to do that? How much money do I need to make to just enjoy life or to make whatever you need to make happen for your household or your family? And then you go from there. Okay, well, I need to have this many lawns to pay for all of this equipment and the expenses, and then your labor. Don't forget to pay yourself. Ultimately, that's why you're working, right? Unless you're looking to grow your business and you're in an opportunity where you're working as a side hustle. You know, like if I was going to start over and if I had a opportunity where I was working for another company and I can use everything from my business to fuel my business. So if everything I was making in my business, I could take and put right back into equipment and marketing. Like, a lot of people only think equipment when they should be thinking marketing, getting their name out there. How are they going to get more clients? How are they going to bring more revenue in? It's too easy to have a goal and not have a plan. Okay, my wife's in here now working in the background, so if you hear some clicking and some tic-tacking on the keyboard, that's her doing something that's making us money. So you guys are going to have to deal with it, because ultimately that's the most important thing in our household, is if we're in the office, she's making money, all right? So I'm using the blower. I'm blowing off the curb first. I always like to do that because when you do, it puts dust onto the sidewalk. So if you blow off the sidewalk first and then you blow off the curb, then you got to blow off the sidewalk again. So think strategically about what is the best order of operations when you're mowing a lawn. So we're putting all this stuff back onto the turf. This is the final time blowing off the property. Now, if you wanted to really, really polish it up, you could fan out the turf, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. I talk about fanning the turf. I don't know what the actual term is. That's just something that I came up with years ago, or maybe I heard it years ago. I don't really know, but that's what I call it. And so when I say fanning the turf, I mean walking across the turf and using the blower to fan out the grass and make it look good. So you might blow leaves out of the way, you might blow grass clippings, debris. You know, it's a method. Like if you have a lot of clumps, you know, if it's moist outside and you end up with them horse turds on the lawn, well, you might go over it and use the blower to fan out the turf and get those horse turds off the lawn. Now when you're blowing a garage, always blow the garage door about 2 or 3 foot up, and that's going to create a downdraft that pushes everything away. Then you can get behind it and actually kick it into the turf, but never blow down at the bottom of the door, because you're going to push stuff underneath the garage door. Update: I just asked Rachel what she's doing over there. She's not making us money. No, she's spending money. She's paying utilities. You know, it's one of those things you have to do. You got to keep them lights on. So it's unfortunate. What are you going to do after that? Are you going to do something to make us money?
Maybe.
Maybe. More than likely not. She's probably going to go to bed. It is 12:08. I personally plan on staying up all night and editing videos for you, which is a great moment for me to ask you, if you enjoy this, please give us a thumbs up. All right, that looks pretty good, but we're not done just yet, man. We've got one last section. All right, one last touch. Let's go ahead and clean this up. There we go. That's the icing on the cake. All right, what do you think of that? That was a pretty good one. I got to tell you, the shovel, a lot of work. Weed eater would do it much better. I've got a video. I'm going to link that down in the description if you want to see me use the weed eater, how I would typically handle a job like this. Of course, that was a freebie, and if I was going to clean it up, make it look real nice like it was for a client, I would bust out the shovel at the end. But for the most part, I would just hit it with the weed eater, then get it with the shovel, then metal blade edge it to fine tune it if that was the case for a cleanup. The edges look a lot better. We've got stains on the concrete from where the grass was, but it's cleaning up. Over here, same thing, stains where the overgrowth was. You can see about 6 inches here, way down here. This is where it was crazy. I put my foot here for perspective, but we cut off more than a foot. Of course, I got small feet, but more than a foot on a lot of that. All right, so here's the last thing that's left is that concrete. I'm gonna make you a promise. If you guys get this video up to 10,000 likes, I'll come clean this concrete 100% free for the homeowner. Sponsored by you guys, because you guys are awesome. I don't have any sponsors that have really taken us up yet. Hustler sent us power washer. I guess that's kind of sponsoring us, but we don't have any financial backing type of sponsors, and other than our awesome viewers. So I want to say thank you, because without your kindness, there's no way that I could go and return the favor. You know, if you guys are kind enough to support me, I'm going to be kind enough to share it back to my community. From now on, any of the overgrown crazy type videos, I'm gonna go out hunting for them, man. I'm gonna look for the best ones, people that look like maybe they could use a little gift, and I'm gonna give it to them. Why not? All right, if you haven't yet, give the video a thumbs up, like and subscribe for more tips and tricks and stuff like this. Hit the notification bell if you do want to see more and you want notifications. If not, either way, whatever it might be, see you in the next one.
Like and subscribe and watch Dad's video.